Welcome inside another edition of Serving the Valley, a chance for you to learn about some outstanding service organizations right here in the Cedar Falls, Waterloo, and Cedar Valley. Today our feature is on the Northeast Iowa Food Bank, and it's been around a very long time doing some amazing things. We'll learn about its history, its programs, and how you can help out by volunteering or giving financial contributions to help feed the many people that are served by this organization. Joining me, two guests here throughout the show, Barb Prather and Ken Cutts. And why don't you just, Barb, introduce yourself and talk about how long you've been at the Northeast Iowa Food Bank and what led you there?
My name is Barb Prather. I'm the director at the food bank. I've been there now for 16 years, but I've been with food banks for 23. I actually began working in food banking in 1992 in Washington, D.C., where I did a year-long volunteer year with the Lutheran Volunteer Corps, was hired after that, and it kind of became my passion and my mission in life to work with food banks. And then when the position in 1999 came open here in Waterloo, my husband was from Iowa, so we decided to move back to the Midwest because I'm originally from Minnesota. Okay. It was a good fit for us. So I've been here now 16 years.
That's quite a long time.
It is a very long time, yes.
And you've seen the food bank grow and evolve over that time.
I have.
It's quite different from maybe a food bank in Washington, D.C., or some similarities?
There's a lot of similarities because we're all both a part of Feeding America. Of course, it's just on different economies of scale. That food bank there predominantly did food distribution to member agencies with a couple programs just starting when I left. Whereas we are very program heavy here. This food bank actually started as a food pantry and then became a food bank. The difference being a food bank serves organizations and programs, and food pantries serve people. So, and then we've kind of evolved over the years there to, even more programs into the community, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, some amazing programs and services that you run as the executive director. Ken, your background's in education. You're not an employee, but you're a very important part, serving as a volunteer and a board member the last 5 years.
That's correct.
What led you from education to devoting so much time to the Northeast Iowa Food Bank?
Well, it began with retirement and with a lot of time on my hands. And I was talking to Barb at the Waterloo Rotary Club one day, and I said I'd like to volunteer and do something. So lo and behold, she said, stop by and we'll find something for you to do. It's quite interesting because I filled out a form in which I said, yeah, I can do presentations and I know a lot about computers, and it's kind of like the Army. I ended up being a truck driver, which I dearly love. It's just been wonderful.
How important is he for what you do with the Northeast Iowa Food Bank?
Ken is extremely important because, he's there one day a week helping us pick up food at area retailers, but he's also there in the governance side of things. We have a 20-plus member board of directors that lead us and really in their area of expertise to help and guide and lead the strategic vision of the food bank, and Ken is very important to that. But volunteers are extremely important to what we do, having over 5,000 of them annually. He's one that really goes above and beyond and steps in and helps us not only with the hands-on labor work, but also with the governance side, which is extremely important.
And we'll be talking about these programs and ways to volunteer. You can bring a group, you can volunteer for one night a year, or you can get on a regular basis in many opportunities. Let's touch on the history and how we got to where we are today. A beautiful facility. You've been there for a couple of years. And why that facility was needed, that upgrade to what you have currently.
Yeah, well, as I said briefly, the food bank began in 1981 in response to an emergency need for food in the Cedar Valley. We, at that time, were in an old school, then moved to the facility on Sycamore Street, and then in 2013 we're able to move into the new facility that was just up on the screen. And it's really enhanced our operation. We're required more and more each year to meet different guidelines set forth by Feeding America. One of them which is to have a facility that's functional, that's clean, that's large enough to handle product. But one of the biggest things was our changing face of donations. We've gone from handling, case lot, shelf stable product to a lot of retail, a lot of perishable product, and we really needed a cooler and freezer that could handle that. So between the combination of all the requirements, as well as the changing face of donations and the fact that our old facility, we couldn't take those, and that facility wasn't up to speed, it was really needed, and the community came forward and helped us fund a new facility that we've now been in since 2013.
And one thing we want to get across, not only do we want people to volunteer and donate money to your cause, but stop by and take a tour,
Right.
because it's important to see, you know, if you give $1, where it's going for,
Right.
and why is that something that you really want the
Well,
public
because,
to know?
you know, a lot of people think when you say the word hunger, a lot of people think of hunger in third world countries. But actually, hunger affects 47,000 people in every year in Northeast Iowa. 1 in 5 kids are affected by hunger. They lack access to an adequate supply of food. So when you come to the food bank, we'll give you a tour, we'll show you all of our programs, what we do, how we operate, but how then we can affect the lives of the people that need access to our service. And they might need it once a year, they might need it twice a year. Whatever that is, we provide access in lots of different ways to help make ends meet for people in Northeast Iowa.
Yeah, it's not just Cedar Falls and
Nope, it's
Waterloo.
not.
As Ken knows, we'll talk about how he drives the truck and logs many miles.
Right.
16 counties?
Yep, we serve 16 counties in Northeast Iowa. Each Feeding America food bank is given a service area
And you
that
can
we're
see the map
responsible
there.
for. So most of the food that we handle is picked up by trucks and delivered out into those communities. Some people choose to come and pick product up, but other agencies have it delivered, or we deliver the backpacks to the schools, or we're delivering our senior programs. We'll get into that in a little bit. But it's very important that we're able to bring it in and then distribute it out.
Ken, talk about driving a truck and why that is something that is rewarding for you to travel and deliver these huge amounts of food.
Driving the truck has been quite an adventure, I must say. I began by traveling all over Northeast Iowa in a big straight truck, taking food to food pantries and picking up food from like Target and Decorah and taking it to someplace else in Decorah. I've kind of nestled into a job in the Cedar Valley in truck driving where we go to the various grocery stores and we call it food rescue, where we pick up bread and produce and milk that is perishable. We call it the bread run. I call it the bread run, and bring it back to the food bank where it's redistributed to a lot of different places. Every day that truck is run throughout the Cedar Valley, picks up 2 full loads a day, and that's how much perishable food there is out there. That was probably wasted before, but it's been a great experience.
I love it. Food rescue, taking that food and making sure that it is being put to
Right.
good use. Partnership's so important for what you're trying to do, especially covering those 16 counties.
Partnerships are extremely important, and we see it on all sides of the food bank, starting with the retailers and the manufacturers and the distributors that donate the food to us, down to the member agency or the school or the senior center on the other end of it. The food bank is really about partnerships. While we're a facility and we really facilitate a lot in Northeast Iowa. And if we didn't have those partnerships, we wouldn't be able to exist. When I got to Waterloo 16 years ago, a lot of the product that we were handling was case-lotted items for manufacturers and distributors. It is a lot more perishable, as Ken talked about, picking that up at the grocery stores. You know, just between Walmart, Target, Hy-Vee, all of those, we're picking up well over 1 million pounds of food that would otherwise be wasted every single year here that's still perfectly good. And we bring it in and we have to go through every bit of it, and every bit of that takes volunteers to do. So we're able to do what we do because of the partnerships we have on the retail end of it, the partnerships we have through our donors who help fund it, and through the partnerships that we have of people who come in and volunteer, as well as the agency level and the distribution level of it on the other side of it.
Before we take a break, just touch on resources and why, you know, you're continuing to need new trucks and larger facilities, and why that's so important for your mission and what you're trying to accomplish.
You know, the food bank is really all about the community, and resources are scarce, and it takes a lot to put this together. You know, we still have to pay a heating bill, we still have to pay a fuel bill, we still have to pay for the trucks. So anything the community can give us to help us make that happen is extremely important. For every dollar that's donated, we can help provide about 4 meals to the community. And we can do that because of what is given to us through volunteer time, through food resources, and through the monetary resources to make all that happen. We just really, we're about the community, helping the community. We get a little bit of government support, but basically what we do is all given to us from the community.
Well, Barb and Ken and your staff and volunteers are doing wonderful things for our community. We'll talk about some of those individual programs after this short break. And again, if you're interested in volunteering your time or your money, please contact the food bank. Back with more Serving Valley right after this.
So they say it's a man's world? Well, I don't see anybody's name on it. While they were out doing their thing, we slowly changed all that. We changed all that. Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Welcome back to Serving the Valley, featuring the Northeast Iowa Food Bank. Barb and Ken joining us here, and we've covered a lot of information already for our viewers, but let's break down some of the programs. 8 key programs,
Right.
and they really hit on a wide variety. First, member agency distribution. What's that?
You know, the food bank, as I said, is a part of Feeding America. They're the nation's food bank network. We're one of 200 member agencies, 200 member food banks of Feeding America, and we have guidelines that we need to follow. Feeding America started when a small food pantry couldn't handle a tractor trailer load of product, but if you bring it in and bank it, many organizations can access it. So how it works is we bring in the food, and then other nonprofit organizations, 501c3, nonprofit or church-based programs, can access that food. They have to fill out an application, we have to do site visits, we have to do training with them, but then they can access what we have available online, or they can come in and shop. And that will either be delivered to them or picked up. So we serve about 200 nonprofit organizations, and it's really about helping them reduce their food costs and feed more people.
And then the Cedar Valley Food Pantry, a subdivision of the food bank, one of your 8 programs?
Right, it's one of our 8 programs, and it's really how this food bank started. It started because there was a large need in the Cedar Valley in the early 80s when Rath was starting to close, John Deere was downsizing, and there was all this need for food. And so what happened was we started a food pantry that would serve people who needed it when all this downsizing was happening. And so between the food bank and the food pantry for almost 20 years, it was just those 2 programs existing together. The food pantry would serve Black Hawk County, the food bank would serve the 16 counties. And we've kind of grown and evolved since then.
And you've seen pictures on your screen of the food pantry. I like Kids Cafe. Through this program, more than 35,000 meals and snacks served to children at 5 Black Hawk County locations annually.
Right, exactly.
That's big.
It's huge, and it started in another partnership in 2000 with the Boys and Girls Club, and it has grown to offer evening meals and snacks to the Boys and Girls Club kids at all their sites, as well as to the Salvation Army. And it's really a great program because what we do is we provide an evening meal during the school year, a snack after school, and then an evening meal, and it's a nutritious evening meal to kids so they won't go hungry at night.
Summer feeding, very important this
Right.
time because kids are not getting their free or reduced lunch at the schools.
Right.
So that program.
Yeah, working with the same sites as well as the YWCA in the summer when the Waterloo Schools isn't doing the program, we provide a meal at noon to those same sites. Salvation Army we do all summer, and then the Boys and Girls Club and YWCA we do when the schools aren't doing it. But it's just another way to provide a nutritious meal in the summer to kids, because a lot of times in the summer the resources are just as scarce as they are in the household during the year, and it can help stretch their families' dollars as well.
And you talk about the youth, but elderly also
Right.
are in need of this,
Right.
and the elderly nutrition program equally as important.
Right. We started that program about 10 years ago with then Hawkeye Valley Area Agency on Aging, now Northeast Iowa Area Agency on Aging, where we provide boxes of food delivered to senior centers, and then they're delivered out to homebound seniors, and then bags of food twice a month to seniors in need at senior sites, where the seniors that come to the sites can pick up a bag. And it's just a simple way to get food to people who might not access a pantry and might need a little extra help. And we're serving about 1,700 seniors in that program.
Couple programs left here. The backpack program. My wife's a school teacher, and it's just so awesome to be able to give a kid a backpack filled with food for him to take home, him or her.
Right, yeah, and we're serving 126 schools and about 4,500 kids through that program.
4,500. Wow.
Yep. So we're doing about 14,000 backpacks every month through that program during the school year. We pack all the bags on site and then distribute them out to the communities and through the schools, and that's where volunteers like Ken come in again and distributing all those backpacks to the schools. And it really does take the volunteers to do it, because volunteers put it together. We have volunteers at the school that help with it, and then the volunteers deliver it as well.
And Ken, it's also it's nutritional food as well, and they're not just getting breakfast, but they're getting a variety of food that they get to take home. Why is that rewarding for you to know that a kid is not going to go hungry over a weekend or
Absolutely.
over a
In fact,
stretch
it's
of
the most rewarding part about the whole position of driving a truck. Feeding in the elderly program, you bring those into the building where they're waiting anxiously for what you got that day, and we don't really see the children when we bring the backpacks in, but the schools are so good about receiving them, and we're glad you brought them in today, and you know you're doing the right thing. Having been at various rungs of the economic ladder and throughout my life, it's a giving back thing that just does great things for me and all the other truck drivers, I'm sure, and riders that ride along with us.
And serving on the board, why is it awesome to see the work that Barb and her staff continuing to grow, not just settling and saying, oh, we got a couple good programs, we'll just do that, continuing to try and improve?
Well, first of all, Barb is great.
I would agree.
A great director. She does a wonderful job. And the board is an interesting group. It's local celebrities that you would know. It's retired John Deere people, engineers. It's just a wonderful way of getting involved and spending your time.
Barb, the mobile food pantry, very important. It serves 3,000 to 4,000 pounds of nutritious food to an average of 100 households.
Yeah, we have the mobile food pantry started in 2010 when we were starting to get a lot more perishable product in that we needed to move fast. It's grown from 4 sites in 2010 to now 11. On a specific day every month, we go to certain communities, get volunteers in that community to meet the truck, and then unload it and then distribute it out. And we're all over Northeast Iowa. We'll be adding a couple sites in the next year as well. But it's just a way to get nutritious food into the community and to people in need. And we go to communities that either don't have a food pantry or they aren't open evenings and weekends to provide better access to people in need. And it's just a great partnership with communities. You don't have to have a brick and mortar building. You can just go there. We go to the same ones every month. And it just helps us sustain and grow in those communities and make sure that people have access to the food that they need.
Last program, we're going to touch on the community garden and
Yep.
why fresh local food is important to add into what you're getting from the Hy-Vees, Walmarts, and so on.
Right. And this is just a small part of what we do, and it's a program we started in 2014 with UNI. Actually, Cam Yar and Cheyenne at UNI was instrumental in this. He saw the land we had, he wanted to make it happen, and he's really made it happen. And last year we were able to harvest about 800 pounds of fresh produce that went directly to our food pantry. This year we now have an AmeriCorps Vista who's managing it, and we just harvested our first fruits last week some green beans that looked magnificent. But yeah, we're really able to provide more nutritious food because that's really where food banking is going. What's available to us more and more nationally. You've seen a lot of the pictures of the watermelons and the cuties and the different product like that, but it's fresh, and that's what people want because people in need have limited resources and they're not going to spend their money on fresh fruits and vegetables. So the more that we can provide them to the community, the better off we are, which is why, again, our building was so important to us.
And can volunteers help out with the community garden as well?
Yes. We have a myriad of volunteer opportunities from truck driving along with Ken to helping sort food, to helping in the garden. Just call the food bank at 319-235-0507 and we'll get you directed to the place that we need you the most. And regular, what I appreciate about Ken and his crew is he's a regular person that comes in and he says, I'm going to be there every Tuesday. So the more regular we can get, then the less training we have to do and we can have lots of people that we can rely on.
You can tell that you're maximizing these volunteers and the financial dollars
Right.
as well, and that's
Right.
very important.
Yeah, if we didn't have volunteers, we would have to raise a lot more money and hire a lot more people. And it's just great to get the community involved in what we do because the food bank is the community.
Well, we'll be back with our final segment. We'll talk about a couple of opportunities of how you can get involved and help out with the Northeast Iowa Food Bank. There you see their contact information. Log on to their website, give them a call, and start volunteering to help feed Northeast Iowa. Back with our final segment right after this.
From the world wars to Korea, Vietnam, to the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and Iraq, they saw what few others ever saw. But many veterans don't talk about their experiences. It may be because you've never asked. Learn what you can't always find in the history books. Interview or contribute materials from the veteran in your community for the Library of Congress Veterans History Project. Download a field kit from our website to find out how you can play a role in preserving history.
Welcome back to Serving the Valley. Ken and Barb have been telling us about the outstanding programs and services offered at the Northeast Iowa Food Bank. Now it's time to find out how you can help. And Barb, making a financial contribution, it definitely can go a long way.
It definitely can go a long way because of the fact that a lot of the food is donated, but we don't have to buy the food. We buy some of it, but not all of it. And so your dollars are used to help us bring in and distribute that food. So if you give us $1, we can help provide 4 meals back to the community. And it's just basically how done based on our financials that are audited every year. But yeah, for every $1, we can provide 4 meals, and any donation is important. We have a lot of people who have given us just monthly donations, monthly contributions, but that's what really helps us run the food bank and make sure that we have enough money to help provide the programs that we have started in the community. And this community is very, very, very generous to what we do, and we really appreciate the support that they give us.
But you need to pay to keep the lights on and pay for the gas and all of that with the trucks.
And, and like I said before, a lot of the food would end up in the landfill if we weren't rescuing it on a daily basis and getting it out to people in need. And it's still perfectly good, and that's the best part of the food bank.
Other ways you can get involved: host a food drive, donate food, have a food bank representative speak to your organization. Those are unique ways.
They are very unique ways. And the one thing I'll add, too, is when we built our building, we built a big conference room. And one of the things that we've offered many times to the community is for them to come in and hold a meeting, and then we'll give you a tour. And we have lots of different groups that do that. So if you're looking for a place for a meeting, just give us a call. We'll reserve the conference room for you. But you have to have a tour, and I promise you get to go in the freezer and cooler.
So what types of groups? I know our church is volunteer, but
anything,
Boy Scout,
Boy Scout, Girl Scout, churches, your church, school groups come in. You name it. We've had groups all over the place.
We had a pictures of the volunteers there.
Somebody who was running for president come through a couple weeks ago. So we have all kinds of different people that come through and help us do what we do, because we couldn't do it without community support. Ken's a prime example. He's one of about 30 people that commit to us to help us pick up food and distribute food. You know, and then our board of directors is all volunteer. It's, you know, 20 plus people who commit to the governance of the board to make sure it's run efficiently. So there's all kinds of volunteer opportunities we have. And anything anybody can do to help us volunteer is very greatly appreciated.
I'd say it's fun too.
Yeah, it
Rolling
can be.
up your
It's a lot of
sleeves and
fun.
working with your group
It's,
to
yep,
help.
exactly.
You know, it's for a very good
I've had
cause.
volunteers tell me it's their stress reliever, and I'm glad that we can provide that.
Sure, gardening,
It is
putting
that, yeah.
box.
Yes,
And
yes.
Ken, so if someone's watching this and they think, I want to volunteer, again, what would you say to them and why it's rewarding for you and why it's so important in feeding Northeast Iowa?
Let's just talk about truck driving and truck riding specifically. If you want to join a group of people that are retired farmers, John Deere engineers, professors at UNI, just folks like myself, what an experience. Because you'll ride with somebody that perhaps you've never known before, maybe a different ethnicity, maybe a different age group, which is great. I'll be 72 next month, but I get to be hanging around with people who are like 20, 30 years old, you know, which I just love.
Sure.
The work is light, it's not that heavy, it's just extremely rewarding. So if you've got a day, half a day, and on a regular basis, and we need lots of drivers and lots of riders because people take vacations,
Sure.
people get ill, people have surgeries, and they're off for a bit of time, but it's, plus if they do that, they're gonna join a really interesting group. They're like 61 million volunteers around the world, and they do 8 billion hours of volunteer work. That's a fun group to be part of.
Well, we thank you for investing many hours of your own personal time to help out this organization. And Barb, finally, before we wrap up, just spreading the word about hunger.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it, yes, in many other countries, it's a severe, serious issue, but some people might not realize that here in Cedar Falls, Waterloo, the Cedar Valley, the 16 counties you have, it can be a serious issue here in today's.
Yeah. As I said, 47,000 people lack access to an adequate supply of food in Northeast Iowa. 1 in 5 kids in Northeast Iowa. 10% of the people we serve are seniors. So it might be your neighbor and you don't even realize it. And it's not about supplying them with their only groceries. It's about providing them access when they need it. And, you know, for kids in school to know that they go home and they'll have food over the weekend so they can come back on Monday morning just ready to study. You know, to kids that might not have an evening meal at home, but they're part of the Boys and Girls Club or the Salvation Army and they can go there and have a meal. You know, or somebody who just needs a little bit of help through our food pantry. There's so many different people out there that you don't know who might need the access. And that's what we're about. We're about reducing food waste and providing food to people who need it. And that's what I love about the food bank because of all the different groups it brings together. I've met so many different people over the years in food banking. And it's, as I've said, it's my mission and it's my passion to make sure that people have access. You know, and if we can set up those access points and target the areas that need the most services, that's what we're going to do because that's what the food bank is about. It's about getting the food to where it needs to be at that moment. And we try to do that the best we can, and it's community support that makes that happen.
Well, thank you so much for all that both of you do
Thank
for
you.
our community and for feeding the 16 counties served by the Northeast Iowa Food Bank. Hopefully you, the viewer, have enjoyed and learned a couple of things about the program. Again, I encourage you to log on to their website where there's a wealth of information. Contact them, stop by for a tour, have them come out and talk to your group or just volunteer or give of your finances as well. It's a great cause. Northeast Iowa Food Bank. Keep up the great work.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
We'll be back with more Serving the Valley on another service organization in the near future. Thanks so much for watching here on Channel 15 Cedar Falls Community Television.